the top stories of the day. Understand the issues that matter. This is Manila Bulletin News on Web. Your quick rundown of top news in the country and around the world. Manila Bulletin, celebrating 120 years of timely stories and timeless truths. Be fully informed. Hi, I'm Barbie Atienza. This is MB Now, and here are your news on web. The country continuously improves as it flattens the COVID-19 curve, but majority of Metro Manila mayors are still in favor of extending the General Community Quarantine or GCQ status in the National Capital Region. For them, it is better safe than sorry. Our correspondent Aaron Recuenco has the details.
Interior and Local Government Secretary Eduardo Año on Friday said majority of Metro Manila mayors are still in favor of maintaining the general community quarantine status for the National Capital Region. The final decision on this will be made after Año's scheduled meeting with the Metro Manila mayors on September 27. The meeting will tackle whether or not the GCQ will be maintained or recommend the placing of Metro Manila under the more relaxed modified GCQ. The Metro Manila Council is expected to come up with its recommendation to President Duterte through the NTF on COVID-19. In coming up with the recommendation, Año said the main consideration that will be factored in is the safety of Metro Manila residents from the coronavirus infection. Despite earlier statements that the Philippines has flattened the curve on the COVID-19, the number of infected persons per day as released by the Department of Health remains high. Metro Manila is considered as the epicenter of the COVID-19 infection. But Año said the current infection situation leaves them with no choice but to implement either a stricter MGCQ or a relaxed GCQ. For MB Now, this is Aaron Recuenco reporting.
If and when the government decides to place a coronavirus-free area under the new normal classification, health protocols must still be observed. According to Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, a less restrictive classification can be given to a specific place that records zero transmission of coronavirus for a certain period, but it will still be subject to health and safety standards to avoid a resurgence of the disease. Our Malacanang senior correspondent Jen Cabiling has this report.
Health protocols must still be observed even if the government decides to place a coronavirus-free area under the new normal classification. Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles said the proposed new normal status for places that record zero transmission of coronavirus for a certain period will be less restrictive, but will still be subject to health and safety standards to avoid a resurgence of the disease.
The more we remove the restrictions, the more we become less restrictive as we ease up the community quarantines, and go to a less restrictive community quarantine, the more of the economy will open. And the more that the economy will open, the more people can go find jobs and then have livelihoods so that they have food on their table. So it's really a balance. While we understand that the implications of community quarantines and lifting restrictions or easing restrictions, we also have to balance that with the health aspect as well. We're also saving lives here.
Early this week, Malacanang announced government plans to introduce the new normal classification for areas that have zero coronavirus transmission in the past month. Nograles said the post-community quarantine status will still be discussed by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases.
The new normal wherein it's going to be less restrictive, and in fact, it won't be technically under a community quarantine. But just a warning that even if there is no technical community quarantine in a new normal, then the same safety and health protocols must still be imposed and followed by the residents therein. So again, that is something that is on the table that will be discussed by the IATF, and we'll have Spokes Harry make the announcements as it comes.
The country is largely under the relaxed coronavirus lockdown as the government seeks to revitalize economic activity and enhance healthcare resources to slow down the spread of the disease. The country's community quarantine classification will expire at the end of the month unless modified by President Duterte. From MB Now, this is Jen Kabiling reporting.
The commander of the Joint Task Force COVID Shield used a popular Filipino proverb to counter the statement of former Lipa Archbishop Ramon Arguelles that love and faith in God are enough protection against the coronavirus disease. Police Lieutenant General Guillermo Eleazar, commander of the JTF COVID Shield, said people must also exert effort to protect themselves from the coronavirus. Eleazar was reacting to the September 23 homily of Arguelles, who was quoted as saying that those who love and have faith in God do not have to need to wear face masks, face shields, or not even need to observe social distancing. Eleazar explained that regardless of one's religious belief and opinion, the health safety protocols crafted by the government with the help of health experts are still needed to be strictly followed in order to ensure protection. Eleazar also emphasized that there should be no quarrel between science and religion, as both of them must be in harmony in order to ensure maximum protection from the virus. Starting next month, Boracay Island will accept local tourists from general community quarantine and modified general community quarantine areas. However, visitors must pass a coronavirus test before traveling to the island. Our correspondent Jen Kabiling has the details.
The government has allowed Boracay Island to accept local tourists from general community quarantine and modified general community quarantine areas starting October 1. Boracay visitors, however, must pass the coronavirus test before traveling to the island, based on the latest Resolution Number 74 issued by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Infectious Diseases. The IATF noted that only travelers with negative polymerase chain reaction test result not earlier than 48 hours prior to travel date will be allowed to travel to Boracay. In reopening Boracay to tourists, Presidential Spokesman Harry Roque said, age restrictions shall be relaxed, while restrictions for persons with comorbidities will still be enforced. The IATF has also advised airlines to land at the Godofredo Ramos Airport in Caticlan, which will be the only port of entry for the tourists traveling by air. The palace recently said President Duterte's order is to gradually reopen the economy, including the tourism sector, with the assurance that health and safety measures are in place. For MB Now, this is Jen Kabiling reporting.
Vice President Leni Robredo advised the Department of Education to reevaluate the implementation of limited face-to-face classes in areas where there is very low transmission of COVID-19. She also said a policy should not be a one-size-fits-all since the risk reduction assessments vary in many areas. Our correspondent Merlina Hernando of Malipot tells us more.
Vice President Leni Robredo on Friday urged the Department of Education to reconsider the implementation of limited face-to-face classes in areas where there is very low transmission of COVID-19. Robredo said the distance or blended learning approach of DepEd should not be a one-size-fits-all policy since the risk reduction assessments vary in many areas. Robredo cited budget concerns, especially on the printing of self-learning modules.
Crinunch namin yung numbers, ang laki-laking percentage ng mga communities ang walang community transmission. Ang gustong sabihin, yung community transmission naka-center siya sa particular na mga lugar. Pero ang daming lugar na wala. Para sa akin, baka makabuti sanang pag-isipan na baka sa mga lugar na wala namang community transmission, magkaroon ng face-to-face na. Magkaroon ng face-to-face pero alalay pa din. Gusto sabihin, pwede kasing pagplanuhan na small class sizes lang, nagro-rotate o whatever. Pero para kasi sabihin na lahat blended, na hindi naman kailangan lahat, baka nagsasayang tayo ng sobrang dami ng resources.
She also noted that the budget of DepEd is not enough to respond to the needs of the education system, more so now that the COVID-19 pandemic has forced the country to shift into alternative learning delivery modalities.
Pag ipinilit natin yung modular, sobrang gastos sa printing. In fact, nagkaroon na ng iba-ibang desisyon dito yung DepEd, di ba? Parang una, online, sunod, modular. Sunod, yung modular, mag-share na yung mga estudyante kasi mahal pala. So para sa akin, sana ginagamit yung data available to make decisions. Kasi halimbawa, maraming mga lugar na coastal, maraming mga lugar na bukid, na wala naman dong community transmission. Kung ipipilit mo yung modular, baka nasasakripisyo natin. Nasasakripisyo natin yung uri ng edukasyon na nakukuha ng mga learners.
There will be no face-to-face classes this school year until a vaccine has been found. Instead of using a big chunk of budget for printed modular learning, Robredo said that DepEd might want to consider the implementation of limited face-to-face classes to make better use of the resources available. For MB Now, this is Merlina Hernando Malipot reporting.
In Metro News, Santa Ana Hospital in Manila reports highest COVID-19 recoveries in a single day. Taguig flattens COVID-19 curve according to Mayor Cayetano. And Valenzuela City to hire 150 tricycle drivers for food delivery service. More from this report.
The occupancy rate of coronavirus disease designated facilities in Santa Ana Hospital, Manila now stands at only 38% after it sent off its highest number of patients who recovered from the disease. The Manila Public Information Office on Friday said Santa Ana Hospital's current occupancy rate is at an all-time low after it reported 20 recoveries in a single day, its highest since the start of the pandemic. Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Dumagoso said this is the result of the continuous service of the city's frontliners. He said this development should serve as an inspiration to the local government and its frontliners as they continue to battle COVID-19. Meanwhile, the Manila LGU opened its 5th walk-in COVID-19 testing facilities at the Hospital ng Tondo Thursday morning. The new testing facilities can accommodate 100 people per day and will be opened at 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. from Monday to Friday. Similar to other testing centers in the city, the facility will be offering free testing for both residents and non-residents of the country's capital. Mayor Lino Cayetano announced that Taguig has flattened the coronavirus disease curve in the last few weeks. In his weekly briefing, Cayetano presented a graph which showed that the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases per week in Taguig City has decreased. Taguig has 698 confirmed COVID-19 cases per 100,000, placing 12th among 17 local government units in the National Capital Region. Taguig also has a low case fatality rate at 0.8% compared to NCR's 1.6% according to the mayor. About 150 tricycle drivers in Valenzuela City will be given extra livelihood following the local government's partnership with the food delivery service company, the Food Panda. The move, called Panda Toda, aims to provide livelihood opportunities to tricycle drivers who are adversely affected by the community quarantines. The local government said the drivers may apply through the city's Public Employment Service Office and submit the necessary requirements. Hired drivers should also be willing to work for at least 2 months.
Here are the top news in other parts of the country. Baguio City wants more contact tracers for effective COVID-19 control. Rescued eagle awaits release back to wild in Iloilo. And Davao City to build 400-bed holding facility for arriving passengers. More from this report.
Mayor Benjamin Magalong wants to organize more backup teams as reinforcement to contact tracers to prevent wearing them out and maintain work quality in the contact tracing efforts of Baguio City against the coronavirus disease. Magalong said the city will train more individuals, both paid and volunteers, to form additional teams and provide relief to those who have been working hard since the start of the pandemic. The city currently has 40 contact tracing teams with 881 trained personnel, but it needs additional contact tracers to maintain work effectiveness and efficiency. An eagle that is on the red list of concerned species by the International Union of Conservation of Nature was recently rescued in Miagao, Iloilo Province, is awaiting to be released back to the wild. The crested serpent eagle was found by resident Girazil Nieles, who did not hesitate to turn it over to the Environment Office of Miagao local government. Initial inspection found the eagle, which wandered off to a residential area, to be in good condition. The Department of Public Works and Highways in Davao Region will put up a 100 million peso 400-bed container city that will serve as additional holding facility for arriving air passengers who will be swabbed for coronavirus disease at the Davao International Airport. A total of 200 prefabricated container vans would be established in a 1.92-hectare lot located beside the tent city at the airport along CP Garcia Highway. Mayor Sara Duterte said earlier that the local government needs to increase the capacity of its holding facilities to be able to open more commercial flights going to and from the city.
In world news, U.S. probe to touch down on asteroid Bennu this October. Pope John Paul II sculptor sparks controversy. And a robot dog to replace man in perilous places in France. Let's watch this report.
After a 4-year journey, NASA's robotic spacecraft OSIRIS-REx will descend to asteroid Bennu's boulder-strewn surface on October 20, touching down for a few seconds to collect rock and dust samples, the agency announced Thursday. Scientists hope the mission will help deepen our understanding of how planets formed and life began and provide insight on asteroid that could impact Earth. The spacecraft, about the size of a large van, will need to touch down in an area about the size of a few parking spots, taking care to avoid surrounding boulders. Because the spacecraft and Bennu will be approximately 334 million kilometers from Earth, it will take about 18.5 minutes for signals to travel between them. It will deliver its payload to Earth on September 24, 2023. An unusual sculpture depicting St. John Paul II holding up a meteorite now stands in Warsaw, an artistic response to a controversial statue showing the rock striking down the late Pope. The masterpiece was named Poisoned Source, shows a polished Pope holding the meteorite high over a pool of red water representing blood. In a statement of the sculptor Jerzy Kalina, John Paul II is not a powerless old man crushed by a meteorite, but a titan of superhuman strength. The installation has already prompted online derision and criticism from art commentators who said it simply reflects the ultra-Catholic outlook of Poland's populist government. Kalina's statue is intended to mark the 100th birthday of the late Pope. Meet Scar, the four-legged dog robot walking the halls of the École de Mines in Nancy, France. The marvel of technology is preparing to acquire abilities that will allow it to explore places too dangerous for humans. The National Agency for the Management of Radioactive Waste is taking a very close interest in it for its controversial underground burial project in Bure. Scar is equipped with 5 camera modules, able in fact to observe its environment, to take measurements, to map areas, to see the dimensions of the tunnel. The agency is working now with public and private organizations to develop applications for this robot so that it can intervene autonomously in complex environments to be able to replace humans.
In entertainment, for the first time in Philippine pageantry, a national beauty contest will allow the candidates to speak in their own languages during the finals. Miss Universe Philippines Creative and Events Director Jonas Gafford said in an Instagram post that they are allowing contenders to express themselves in their own languages, even in interviews, speeches, and Q&As. They will also be providing interpreters and subtitles for the contenders. Gafford also shared that the coronation night will have the traditional segments expected from a beauty pageant, but with a fresher and insightful take. The grand coronation of the Miss Universe Philippines 2020 beauty pageant will be aired on GMA 7 on October 25. Actress Julia Barreto filed a cybercrime case against former broadcaster Jay Sonza at the National Bureau of Investigation today, September 25, over rumors of her alleged pregnancy by Gerald Anderson that came out on Sonza's Facebook page last September 21. Barreto, accompanied by her mother Marjorie, personally appeared before the NBI Cybercrime Division to ask the Bureau to investigate the untrue and irresponsible statements made by Sonza on his social media account. Sonza made a post on Wednesday, September 23, retracting his previous post about Barreto and Anderson, saying that he just got excited when someone told him about the alleged pregnancy. And in sports, PBA Commissioner Willie Marshall sees nothing wrong with players opting out of next month's Clark bubble as long as they get an approval from their respective teams. Marshall made a statement in Thursday's virtual press conference announcing the provisional approval of the PBA bubble by the Interagency Task Force. Marshall was referring to the case of NLEX veterans Larry Fonacier and Cyrus Baguio, who begged off from joining the bubble due to personal reasons. Fonacier became the first player to opt out as his wife is dealing with health issues before Baguio followed suit last Thursday. Players have the option of not suiting up as long as they have properly informed their teams before the Philippine Cup restart on October 11. Prohibited are players, coaches, and staff who will leave the bubble as it will violate the strict protocols that will be observed in Clark. Violators face a fine of 100,000 pesos, a 5-game suspension effective the following season, and 1 month salary deduction. Marshall also said that sanctions will also be handed to non-PBA personnel who will leave the bubble, namely TV crew and the 5 media that opted to cover the games for their respective dailies and online sites. And those are the news on Web today, September 25, 2020. It's 91 days before Christmas. For more news and details, get your copy of Manila Bulletin newspaper tomorrow or log on to www.mb.com.ph, or you may also subscribe to our newsletter through the link on this video's caption to have the day's latest news delivered to your inbox. I am Barbie Atienza for Manila Bulletin, celebrating 120 years of timely stories and timeless truths. Join us again on Monday. This has been MB Now. Be fully informed.